Extraction stations.
Awaiting instructions.
Autopilot mode enabled.
Enemy force sighted on the horizon. Enemy cruiser detected. Enemy battleship sighted.
Torpedoes, dead ahead!
Don't you watch this fucking idiot shit? Oh my god. People stupid. Okay. Alright.
Autopilot mode disabled.
Sell right in them by yourself, or you correct?
Don't fire at your allies.
What a douchebag. What you think, you brother? What you think? Oh, torpedoes got knocked out.
Torpedoes to port! Protect the base.
Kick my ass over. But I ain't seen to be this crap.
The ship is on fire.
Worry about him.
Problem solved, sir.
I ain't scored high since I've tried this morning. I don't know why. To be honest. Should have took him out.
Enemy cruiser sunk.
Our team has taken the lead.
Big 50. Go after. Oh, fast.
Confirmed penetration.
Instead of getting better at this game, I'm getting worse. I am. Oh, good.
Confirmed penetration. The ship is on fire.
Enemy battleship destroyed.
Problem solved, sir.
Okay, that's better than it been done. Out of signals. Damn, man. Boy, I'm getting toward having to buy that shit. Damn. Yeah. Number 5. Decimal. Oh, November 1st. How about it? Hell. There we go, November. 2 million a thing, huh? Damn, son. Tell you what, man. I'm turning them off early. We're going to save some. Ain't seen to be. How much more black on this guy? A lot, I think. 100, 6,416, man. We about got him ranked out.
Autopilot mode enabled.
Yes.
Battle starts.
Yeah, let's see what's going on in the news this morning. Why not? Some senator got arrested. Yeah, okay.
The latest on a dust-up under the Gold Dome. New questions are emerging tonight about a state lawmaker's arrest after he tried to get into the governor's State of the State address. State Senator Colton Moore is charged with willful obstruction of law enforcement officers. News Edge reporter Rob D'Arienzo is at the live desk tonight with more. And Rob, some say this arrest may have violated the state's constitution.
Yeah, Christine, good evening to you. Even the chairwoman of the Georgia Democratic Party has come to the far-right state senator's defense. It was a hot mess outside of Georgia's House chambers this morning. State Senator Colton Moore taken to the ground, then to the Fulton County Jail. Republicans are split on who was in the wrong. I spoke with a lawyer who walked him out today.
They took my freedom and liberty away as I was fighting for your liberty and freedom.
State Senator Colton Moore gave this update from a hospital bed at Emory Midtown, hours after state troopers arrested him outside the House chambers Thursday.
I did take a bit of a beating on my hand. It's a bit swollen and purple. We're waiting to get some x-rays.
He was trying to get into Governor Brian Kemp's State of the State address, but last year the House banned him from their chamber. They were angry he called former Speaker David Ralston, who had just died, one of the most corrupt leaders in state history. Thursday, GOP leaders stood by not letting him in.
The Speaker of the House has the responsibility of maintaining order and decorum in the House chamber. He's done that here today.
On the other hand, Republican Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones and Georgia's GOP chair objected to Moore's arrest. Jones chalked it down to, quote, personal grievances and egos. After Moore bonded out of the Rice Street jail, he called the Peach State a banana republic.
This is a complete and total constitutional debacle.
Across the political spectrum, the far-right lawmaker has gotten support from some surprising voices, like civil rights attorney Gerald Griggs.
It appears as though his rights may have been violated because the Constitution is quite clear on whether or not somebody can be arrested during session.
Georgia's Constitution, paragraph 9, reads, quote, members of both houses shall be free from arrest during sessions of the General Assembly and in going thereto or returning therefrom, except for treason, felony, or breach of the peace. Fox 5 spoke one-on-one with the lawyer who walked the state senator out of the jail Thursday afternoon.
In the United States, you're not supposed to be treated that way. The Constitution is there for a reason. The Speaker of the House is beholden to the state Constitution and also the federal Constitution.
And Christine, one person we haven't heard from today at all about this incident was the person behind those doors giving the speech Moore was trying to watch. Governor Brian Kemp. Multiple requests to his press secretary went unanswered, and we do know the senator has been discharged from the hospital and plans to be back under the Gold Dome. Back to you.
Yeah, it would be interesting to hear the governor's stance on this. We heard from Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones, but we'll see if they say something. Rob, thanks so much.
Yes. Most people have no clue that in 2024, the best way to make money with Amazon is not with physical products. It's Amazon's other company, Audible. Audible has been paying me a steady and reliable income every month.
I mean, like, fuck Joe Biden.
But first, breaking tonight, President-elect Trump's picks to run several cabinet-level agencies took their turns before senators today during confirmation hearings on the Hill. Government spending, particularly on climate change initiatives and tax policy, took up much of the time. Senior national correspondent Rich Edson is on Capitol Hill with the latest tonight. Good evening, Rich.
Good evening, Brett. President-elect Trump's nominees to lead the Treasury and Interior Departments and the Environmental Protection Agency appeared before different committees in the Senate today. So did a number of witnesses for and against the nomination of Pam Bondi as Attorney General. Treasury Secretary nominee Scott Bessent warned that increased government spending and deficits and a failure to extend the 2017 tax cuts would leave the United States, quote, barreling towards an economic crisis at year end. He also defended Trump's claims that foreign countries would pay for higher tariffs.
I think that's baloney. It's going to be paid for by workers and small businesses. So, your response?
Yes, Senator, I would respectfully disagree. Foreign manufacturers, especially China, which is trying to export their way out of their current economic malaise, they will continue cutting prices to maintain market share.
Interior Secretary nominee Doug Burgum testified that when the government restricts energy production in America, it just shifts it to adversaries like Russia, Venezuela, and Iran. Burgum warned that the U.S. needs the energy.
Electricity is at the brink. Our grid is at a point where it could go completely unstable. We could be just months away from having skyrocketing prices for Americans. And of course, as we talked about in the AI arms race, we need electricity for manufacturing.
Senate Democrats criticized Burgum and Lee Zeldin, Trump's nominee to lead the Environmental Protection Agency, over calls to unravel the Biden administration's climate policies. Zeldin says the incoming administration is concerned about those costs. Brett?
Rich Jetson live on the Hill. Rich, thanks. Another sign tonight of the major changes already happening in Washington ahead of the second Trump presidency. The FBI says it has closed its Office of Diversity and Inclusion. Correspondent David Spund is here with specifics on that. Good evening, David.
Brett, good evening to you. Very little explanation from the FBI as to why this office closed. We just know it closed. The Office of Diversity and Inclusion, called ODI, was formed in 2012, and as of last month, it's no more. If you search FBI Diversity Inclusion, an FBI job site comes up that has a photograph of two dogs sitting in front of the Lincoln Memorial, and the words above it say, "Page not found, we're sniffing this out for you." We asked the FBI, and we're told, quote, in recent weeks, the FBI took steps to close the Office of Diversity Inclusion, effective by December 2024, last month. Fox asked the FBI for more context and was told the statement is it. In 2015, diversity became part of the Bureau's core values. There's another part of the FBI site that discusses the mission of the now shuttered office.
What is a home warranty? It's a one-year service plan that helps...
The biggest fuck up our country's seen in decades. Centuries, even. Will Hunter Biden testify on what? What's he testifying on there?
Hey there, everybody. It's Jeremy Rosenthal, your briefing attorney. Just wanted to share this story with you from last June about Hunter Biden and his jury trial. At the time that we did this interview, it was unclear whether or not he would testify in his own defense. Obviously, he didn't do that. The jury did go out that afternoon and convicted him very early the next morning. Obviously, Hunter Biden was ultimately pardoned by his dad, the President Joe Biden, prior to his sentencing in December, which was a possibility that we discuss in the video. So just always fun to go and look back at history, as it were, and enjoy the interview.
Joining us live this morning to provide...
Good morning, everybody. Welcome back for our second day of hearing on Ms. Bondi's nomination for Attorney General. As I said yesterday, I want everyone to be able to watch the hearing without obstruction. If people stand up and block the views of others behind them, or if they speak out of turn, it's not fair or considerate to others. So officers will remove individuals as they have previously. We didn't have any of these problems yesterday. I don't anticipate it today, but I just think we ought to make everything pretty clear. Before we begin with opening statements from the panel, I want to go through a couple of bookkeeping items and explain how we're going to proceed today. I will give an opening statement and introduce the majority witnesses, and I'll give the opportunity to Senator Durbin to provide an opening statement and introduce his witnesses. Then we will turn to our witnesses for their opening statements. Following their statements, we will begin with the first round of questions in which each senator will have 5 minutes. Yesterday, we met from 9:30 until 3 p.m. so that every senator, both Democrat and Republican, could question Ms. Bondi. We heard from Senator Scott and Schmidt, who gave their strong endorsement of Ms. Bondi. Their introductions described her extensive experience, outstanding qualifications, and character. Yesterday's testimony showed that Ms. Bondi is certainly experienced and capable to serve as our nation's chief law enforcement officer at this very critical time. She is very well qualified for the position, serving 18 years as prosecutor and 8 years as Attorney General for the state of Florida. Florida, the third most populous state in our nation. She will enact desperately needed changes at a department that has been politicized and weaponized for partisan ends. With almost 30 years of experience behind her, she will restore both morale and law and order to the department badly needed, in need of strong leadership. Her commitment to the rule of law emerged as a central theme of our discussions yesterday, and as I made clear in my opening statement yesterday, that is what I believe the department of this country desperately needs. Today, the purpose is to hear from an outside panel of witnesses, and we're grateful that all of you are here this morning to express your views on this nominee. I will go ahead and introduce the 3 majority witnesses before I turn over to Ranking Member Durbin. First is Dave Ehrenberg. Until just a few days ago, Mr. Ehrenberg was the elected Democrat state attorney for Florida's 15th Judicial District. He served in that role for 3 terms since he was elected in 2012. Mr. Ehrenberg also previously served in the Florida State Senate and as a White House fellow in both Clinton and Bush administrations at the Treasury Department. He has known Ms. Bondi since 2010 when he ran to be the Attorney General of Florida, a position Ms. Bondi obviously won. Notwithstanding their political differences, Ms. Bondi appointed Mr. Ehrenberg to be her drug czar to combat the opioid epidemic, and through that work, he came to know Ms. Bondi very well. Second, we have Mr. Nicholas Cox, who is Florida's longest-serving statewide prosecutor. He has served in that role since 2011. In his capacity as statewide prosecutor, Mr. Cox focuses on cases involving human trafficking, drug abuse, fraud, organized crime, gang violence, cyber crimes, and crimes against seniors. Mr. Cox also previously served a member of the faculty of Stetson University College of Law, where he taught trial advocacy, consumer law, counseling and negotiations, and criminal procedure. Mr. Cox has extensively experienced observing Ms. Bondi's work as a lawyer and administrator. Ms. Bondi began her career as an intern in his office. While serving as Attorney General, she appointed him to his current office. Third and last, we have Sheriff Emery Gainey, a career law enforcement officer with more than 40 years' experience. Sheriff Gainey has served as a sheriff of 2 counties in Florida. When Ms. Bondi served as Attorney General, he served as her Director of Law Enforcement and Director of Victim Services. Through his work as law enforcement officer in Florida, Sheriff Gainey is very familiar with Mrs. Bondi's work with state, local, and federal law enforcement, as well as her work to address drug abuse, fight human trafficking, and victims of crime. Thanks, all of you, for serving. Senator Durbin.
Thanks, Chairman Grassley. I want to take a moment to reflect on yesterday's session with Ms. Bondi. There seemed to be a meeting of minds on criminal justice reform and the pressing need to protect our children online. Those are good things. There are still some outstanding issues from yesterday's hearing that I'm struggling with. Let's start with a very important issue. Who won the election in 2020? Why are we still asking that question? For goodness sakes, we moved on to a new election. You would think that'd be over. The reason why that's still a relevant question is it gets to the heart of our democracy. The peaceful transition from one president to a new president by the will of the people without resistance and without denial. There's a phrase hanging Chad with any significance to our witnesses. It does to me and to every American. In the year 2000, Bush versus Gore, there was a contest that went on into December. Numerous court contests associated with it as to who actually won that election. There came a moment when Al Gore stood up and said, "That's it, it's over. I've gone to court, I can keep going to court, but I don't think that's in the best interest of this country. I concede, George W. Bush won." You didn't hear Democrats at that saying, "Never say that in public. Never concede that in public." We did. George W. Bush won the election because Al Gore decided to step out at a point when Bush was ahead. Period. End of story. That is what a democracy is all about. One person concedes, the other person wins. We move to the next president and ultimately the next election. But that's not the case in the year 2020. We still have a candidate, in this case, President Trump, who's in denial as to what happened in 2020. And as a consequence, some characterize it a big lie, whatever you want to characterize it. It really is an important question because it gets to the fundamentals of anyone seeking a position in the cabinet of this president or serving our nation. Do they acknowledge the peaceful transition of power in 2020 from Donald Trump to Joe Biden? The answer is yes. The reason is we had the certification of the electoral vote. Senator Klobuchar remembers that well. And we went through the process we're supposed to go through in our Constitution. End of story. But yet when I asked that simple question of Ms. Bondi yesterday, she was unable to say just expressly yes. Joe Biden received more votes than Donald Trump and was elected president in 2020. Why is that such a hard question? I don't understand. Why couldn't she state plainly that's what happened? When a nominee for Attorney General is afraid to state a simple fact, then what does it say about the future of our democracy and the credibility of our system of justice? She not only refused to acknowledge President Trump's defeat in 2020, she also said, quote, "There was a peaceful transition of power." Let me repeat that. A peaceful transition of power. Seen the videotapes? What happened here on January 6th? Can you imagine if the news came on and said, "Did you hear what happened in London today? A mob stormed the Houses of Parliament, crashed through the door of the House of Commons, took control of British Parliament, and we hope that the police can take control back in a matter of hours so they can continue their business." What would we say to that? In London, in England, they went through what? A mob storming the Houses of Parliament, knocking down the door? Incredible. Whatever happened to that country? We thought they were leaders in the world. Now reflect for a moment on January 6, 2021, and what we went through. All of us went through individually. Being spirited out of the Capitol building, taken to a safe place because of a mob. That was not a peaceful transition of power. And I want to just say, Sheriff Gandy, thank you for joining us today. You may have noticed, we all noticed around here, we're not supposed to notice, we should. The men and women in uniform protect us in this chamber and throughout these buildings day in and day out. God bless them. But what they went through on January 6th is an outrage. Attacks on them, several lost their lives as a consequence of what they went through. Many were forced into retirement, and hundreds of people were arrested for trespassing and much more serious crimes. Donald Trump characterizes them as political prisoners. The people who attacked our policemen are characterized as political prisoners, and he promises that he's going to give a pardon to all of them on the day that he's sworn into office. I asked a basic question of Ms. Bondi as the Chief Law Enforcement Officer, which she would be under as Attorney General. What do you think about the pardons? She wouldn't comment. Well, she made it clear she stood behind the police, but you can make them clear by saying to Donald Trump, this is a bad idea. Anyone who is guilty of violence, certainly guilty of violence, should not be pardoned on the day that you're sworn in as president. So I was at least disappointed by her answer. answer. And then this Cash Patel issue. Cash Patel, I'm going to meet him next week for the first time. I've read an awful lot about him. There's an awful lot to read. He has a lot to say. He said it, and he's published it in book form. One of the things he said is that he has an enemies list. Secret police agencies throughout history have an enemy list. The American FBI does not and should not. I think there's serious questions about this man, his judgment, and his political values that he would bring to office. Yesterday, Ms. Bondi embraced him as a person's right for the job. I certainly don't feel that way. He's going to have to convince me. So there are questions raised. Having said that, I want to concede two things. First, if I were setting out to hire an attorney, she certainly has the strongest resume and should be hired. Number two, the testimony today, particularly from people of the opposite political party in Florida, is a testimony to the fact that she's been bipartisan and very effective as Attorney General. I will concede that point. When she talks about the things she achieved, I'm impressed. I should be. But the question is, when Donald Trump knocks on her door as Attorney General, and he will, if you question that, ask Jeff Sessions or ask Bill Barr, he will knock on her door and ask her to do something that's going to be a challenge ethically or morally. It's just his nature. He views that office as an office he personally controls. He doesn't. The American people and the Constitution control that office, and we have to resolve whether or not Ms. Bondi is a person to be the next Attorney General. Our first minority witness is Lisa Gilbert, co-president of Public Citizen, a nonprofit organization with more than 500,000 members. The organization has an extensive record of investigating conflicts of interest in public corruption, and Ms. Gilbert will speak to the dangers of confirming someone with corporate interest as Attorney General. Second witness, Mary McCord, Executive Director of the Institute for Constitutional...
Until last week. But big smile and...
Georgetown Law Center. Prior to for the District of Columbia, also served as Assistant Attorney General for National Security from 2016 to 2017.
Honest you are and everything like that, so please rise. Would you raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give before this committee will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I've seen all of you say yes to that. Thank you very much. And now you may proceed with your statements, and we'll start with Mr. Ehrenberg and just go across the table that way. So please start out.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Durbin, Senators. In 2010, after serving 8 years as a state senator in Florida, I ran for Florida Attorney General. I faced a fellow state senator in the Democratic primary and one of 3 Republican candidates in a potential general election. Pam Bondi was one of those 3 candidates. This was her first run for political office, and she was the only candidate in the race on either side whom I did not know. At our first candidates forum, she came up to me with a big smile and told me her younger brother, who may be here today, Brad, worked with me at my old law firm as a summer associate and had very complimentary things to say. That was vintage Pam Bondi. My potential future opponent immediately disarmed me by ignoring partisanship to reach out to me as a human being. Pam won her primary, and I lost mine. I then endorsed my Democratic primary, who faced her in the general election, and then Pam won that election too. Despite the fact that I was on the other side of the aisle and did not support her campaign, Pam called me to offer the position as her drug czar to combat the opioid epidemic that was ravaging Florida and to shut down the state's ubiquitous pill mills that fed the nation's addiction. She offered me this position because she knew from the campaign that fighting the opioid epidemic had been my career priority and an important part of my campaign platform. It did not matter that I had a D after my name. She believed I was the best person for the job, regardless of party affiliation. I accepted the position and received a little pushback from my side of the aisle, but nothing compared to what Pam Bondi received. At a party event, one county Republican chairman was so angry that he wagged a finger in front of her face to condemn her decision. He didn't argue that I was unqualified, just that she was resurrecting a Democrat's political career who had just lost badly in a statewide election. On that, he may have had a point. I served as drug czar, though, for 2 years and then got elected as a Democratic state attorney for the next 3 terms, 12 years until last week. But you don't wag a finger in Pam Bondi's face and get away with it. Pam's kind and genuine and loves people, but she's also tough as nails. Pam met this guy's fire with fire, putting her own finger in the party leader's face to defend her new employee, and she didn't care that I was a Democrat or that she didn't know me that well at the time, or that one day this could help me run for office, which it did. She didn't do it because she one day hoped I would have her back at a Senate confirmation hearing. It was just the person she was and still is. When A.G. Bondi and I began our anti-pill mill initiative, 7 people a day were dying from prescription opioid overdoses, and there were more pain clinics in Florida than McDonald's in Florida. A year later, she convinced a reluctant Republican legislature to pass crucial, long overdue reforms, including a prescription drug monitoring program that dramatically reduced doctor shopping. A.G. Bondi used her bully pulpit and her bipartisan relationships to get it done. Today, Florida's pill mills are no more. The steady stream of cars from Appalachia that constituted the OxyContin Express are a distant memory, and countless lives have been saved because of our state's days as the drug dealer for the rest of the country is an ignominious part of our past. Pam Bondi and I have always had our political differences, although that has never come between our friendship. I supported the presidential campaigns of Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, and Kamala Harris. I've been outspoken on cable TV and streaming channels on a host of legal issues, including with Professor McCord, including the dangers of targeting one's political enemies. I was critical of the Durham investigation, which led to questionable criminal cases and embarrassing acquittals. A prosecutor's job is to follow the evidence and the law without fear or favor. Pam Bondi is a 20-year prosecutor who understands this. Even if she does something as Attorney General of the United States that I disagree with, I believe she will always remain tethered to the law. And there are some important issues where she and I are in complete agreement, such as the need to stop the flow of deadly fentanyl that has become by far the largest killer within the ongoing opioid epidemic. We agree on tough punishments for those who engage in the modern-day slavery known as human trafficking, and for laws that allow victims to have their low-level crimes expunged and to utilize the T-visa program when needed. We agree on the need for treatment courts, which have proven to be a better alternative to incarceration with a lower recidivism rate for many nonviolent drug offenders. And we agree there should be a stronger response to the growing number of anti-Semitic incidents in our country, and especially on college campuses. Senators, I'm grateful for the time to speak with you today and look forward to answering any questions you may have.
What does it really take to stop a motivated, violent criminal dead in his tracks?
Grassley, Ranking Member Durbin, thank you for the opportunity to testify. I'm Lisa Gilbert, co-president of Public Citizen. Public Citizen is a 54-year-old nonprofit organization with 500,000 members and supporters across the country. We champion the public interest in the halls of power, working to ensure that our government and our economy work for the people, not for wealthy special interests and corporations. On behalf of our members, we stand in opposition to the nomination of Pam Bondi for the role of Attorney General. The mission of the Department of Justice is to work on behalf of the American people, keep our country safe, protect civil rights, uphold the rule of law. Unfortunately, Pam Bondi has numerous troubling potential conflicts of interest from her time as a lobbyist, which call into question her ability to hold corporate wrongdoers accountable. I'll focus my testimony on our concerns about this problem. Public Citizen recently examined the federal lobbying disclosures and Foreign Agents Registration Act reports filed by Bondi and Ballard Partners, her lobbying firm. Our review showed that her client list is full of controversial clients, some of which stand to benefit directly from having their former lobbyist in charge of the DOJ. Over the last 5 years, she represented 30 clients, from large corporations and contractors to a foreign government. In addition, during her earlier time as Florida Attorney General, a recent New York Times review found several pieces of evidence that seem to demonstrate her general tendency to assist corporate allies and corporate lobbyists' strong belief that Bondi was exceptionally accessible to lobbyists and amenable to the agendas of their corporate clients. Bondi had a large number of domestic clients, but today I'll highlight just two. Geo Group, the nation's largest private prisons company, arrested in Kuwait on terms of embezzlement from her and her of prioritization. It's a net of potential conflicts that there really isn't a realistic escape from.
Good morning, Chairman Grassley, Ranking Member Durbin, and members of the Senate Judiciary Committee. Thank you for allowing me to testify before you today on behalf of the United States Attorney General nominee Pamela J. Bondi. My name is Emery Gainey. I am a 40-year career law enforcement officer who has served at all levels of law enforcement, to include the sheriff of 2 Florida counties. It has been my distinct pleasure and honor of knowing and working with Ms. Bondi since 2010. As a member of her senior executive staff, I served as the Director of Law Enforcement, Victim Services, and Criminal Justice Programs when she assumed the office of Attorney General in 2011. And I continued to serve in those capacities through her 8-year tenure as Attorney General. To this day, we maintain a very close professional, personal, and family relationship. I want to speak this morning on Ms. Bondi's commitment to the just and proper enforcement of the law, demonstrated through her well-earned relationships with local, state, and federal law enforcement partners throughout the United States. During her service as a prosecutor in Florida's 13th Judicial Circuit, Ms. Bondi had well-established, deep-rooted relationships with local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies. Upon becoming Attorney General, she immediately began the process of meeting all law enforcement leaders throughout the state of Florida to establish partnerships to ensure that our citizens and visitors to our state receive the most effective law enforcement and victim services available. One critical issue that she immediately took on was the emerging proliferation of deadly designer drugs, specifically those referred to as bath salts, that our state had been facing prior to her being elected as Attorney General. Ms. Bondi called together our stakeholders, to include prosecutors, law enforcement, our Office of Drug Control, our state lab directors, and many others, to not only seek to understand this new trend in our state, but to seek immediate solutions to stop the spread of these deadly substances that were taking the lives of our citizens. From these stakeholder meetings, she developed a strategy and a call to action to immediately outlaw these dangerous bath salt substances. Utilizing Florida's rule-making statutes and bipartisan support from Florida's legislature, she was able to permanently ban the sale of these deadly drugs, despite the continuous efforts by those who altered their formulas in order to circumvent Florida law, in an attempt to keep multiple versions of these harmful substances on some of the shelves of some of our retailers. These actions, in conjunction with our public and private partners, begin to effectively address a growing trend in illegal substance abuse in our state. Ms. Bondi's commitment to the rule of law was also evident in her taking the lead role investigating and prosecuting crimes involving gang activities, organized retail theft, human trafficking, and a host of other criminal activities. She demonstrated her deep commitment to keep and restore the lives of victims of human trafficking through her leadership on Florida's statewide Council on Human Trafficking by investing in and supporting safe houses for victims.